Have you ever made a bad purchase before? How about the ones you regret? Well, I've made 5 really bad purchases when I was in my early 20s that I'm going to share with you today, Insider. And hopefully you can learn from this. And also, the final one is a bit of a controversial one, and it's not really what you expect. It's not the typical thing that most people talk about when it comes to wasting money. So make sure to pay close attention, because who knows, this might save you some money, as well as you'll gain some insights in regards to psychological reasons why we tend to make these mistakes. So let's go straight onto the first, which is luxury flat. When I was a student, and this was in my early 20s by the way, we had a budget that we had set aside for the second year. Here in England, when you go to university, you get offered for the first year, you get offered dorms. And the rent in the dorms, where you're sharing with other people, group of students, is really cheap. And we were in London at the time, so it's still fairly cheap for London. However, on the second year, they kind of kick you out and you got to go find somewhere to rent. And so we found a place north of London, and we contacted the real estate agent who was in charge of these flats. And we told the real estate agent, oh, we got a budget of 1250 between 4 of us. And what ended up happening is he basically chucked us in his car, and we ended up going to all these flats. And the first flat we ended up seeing, we were just like eyes wide open, because it was like a white, like bright white mansion. And we're scratching our head thinking, this is freaking incredible. And I remember the moment we walk in, it's like, I mean, imagine you're coming from dorms, right, where you're looking, you're lucky to see something brand new, because everything's used and everything's worn. But yeah, we're walking into brand new flats, and it was 3 stories high, huge, brand new furniture, just been newly renovated, and just we're walking around and we can smell the new furniture, and we're just like, wow, scratching our heads thinking, how's this within our budget? And the real estate agent began to sell it quite well in regards to making us really see ourselves living there. And we were really, really sold. One of the big mistakes that we made was this. I want you to write this down. When emotion is high, intelligence is low. Let me say that again. When your emotion is high, intelligence is low. The problem is I was with a group of friends that I kind of only just met at the time, and we thought, yeah, we're going to get along. We was just looking at the short term, because in the short term, yeah, we did get along, but we didn't really think or question what's the long-term implications if we were to take out a flat. And at the same time, I was with a girlfriend, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to be with this girl for the rest of my life, right? As you tend to do when you're a student, I don't know, sometimes you're a bit in the la-la land. So I thought, yeah, I'm in. And then my flatmates said, yeah, I'm in. And all of a sudden, real estate agent turns around and says, oh, by the way, this flat is not 1250, it's £2,000 per month, which is about $2,300. Now we're just like, what? We asked him, why did you show us this? And he said, oh, well, I thought it's something you would like. Now, because we were so emotionally fueled at the time, we were just like, yeah, we'll just do it. So we ended up signing the contract that day, putting all of the deposit down, and we thought, yeah, in the short term we can afford it, let's make it happen. And well, that plan really screwed up, because about 8 months down the line, I ended up breaking up with that girl, and now this girl went also away to a different country to study, and so we are now missing one person who was contributing towards this rent we could barely afford. And our friendship circle, the 2 others that was living with me at the time, it began to basically go in the opposite direction, and the energy of the flat was just totally wrong. We got to a point around 11 months down the line, we just couldn't afford it, but we were still throwing these huge parties. All these students were coming over, as we're in a big freaking white mansion, right? Really newly renovated flat. But in reality, we were, almost going broke, trying to afford this, trying to impress others. And that's when I learned a hard lesson from this process. Now, I've learned more hard lessons that I had to just keep on have you ever been in that situation where you got to keep on learning that same lesson until, yeah, you learn it? That's what ended up happening. But the first mistake that I made was taking out a flat to impress others, and something that I couldn't actually personally afford at the time. So that's the first mistake I made in my early 20s. The second is drugs. Now, most people, they don't know that my past involved a lot of drugs, ranging from class C's to class A's. I'm very humble nowadays when I'm speaking on stages all across the globe, and people, for example, put their hands up and they say, oh, Tim, that's a great story, but you don't look like somebody who would have been addicted to drugs or dealing drugs or committing crime. And every single time I feel so humbled, because it shows me how much I've transformed my life, where people can't even imagine what I look like in the past. This isn't a picture I was thinking of showing you, but let me show you this picture of how I used to look in the past. This is, I didn't take many photos back then, but this was like a mugshot, let's say. But you can see how the implications of environment impacts the way you even physically look. Anyways, to cut the long story short, I spent a lot of money on drugs. And I discovered early on in my journey that I had a bit of an addictive personality in which I do today, but I channel it towards the right direction. Back in the past, I was channeling it towards the things that was costing me my health, and of which health is the foundation of life. You don't have health, forget it, you're not living. So I was just spending money to cause myself harm. And this is why today I'm, obsessed with health. This is why today I'm obsessed with exercising. This is why today I'm obsessed with taking vitamins, supplements, as well as eating a healthy diet, because I caused so much harm in the past. And to be honest, yes, it cost me money, but what it cost me was my health. And this is something that I'll never, ever be able to get back. And this is why I'm obsessed today. But that's the second thing, drugs. This includes alcohol and cigarettes, by the way, because I used to take a lot of that. The third, Michelin star meals. When I was with this girl I'd met in uni, first year, she was one of my dorm flatmates. She had an upbringing where she was used to Michelin-starred meals. And Michelin-star meals, Michelin-star restaurants in general, are very, very expensive to basically go into and just sit down and have a meal. So typically, a Michelin star would cost upwards of $100 or $200, or even some of them will go up all the way up to $2,000 and more plus. So you can imagine I was a student at the time, and when you're a student, you tend to buy cheap meals and so forth. But because we are so used to, every time I would see her parents going to these Michelin-starred meals, I began to almost trip myself up in thinking that I can afford this as well. Now, technically, I could afford it, but in the long term, I could not. So I was looking at the short term, and this is the implications of our human psychology. Human psychology, the way it works, the way we're biologically programmed, is to seek instant gratification. And this is why drug addicts become drug addicts. This is why, for example, smokers smoke. This is why most people become overweight, because they're looking at the short term opposed to the long term implications of their habit. And this was the same in regards to my spending habit. I thought, yeah, I can afford a meal right now. It costs $100, $200, $300. I was like, yeah, I can afford it. And I would just splurge like this. Until one day, I got to a point where I just couldn't even afford the regular sort of meals or regular sort of things that I would buy from a grocery store. So it had a huge implication on me. Nowadays, yes, I do go to Michelin star meals, but it's because I can afford it. It's a totally different feeling, trust me. Get to a point in your life where you don't even have to think about what's wrote on the receipt. And that, I believe, is definition of freedom. That is what I told myself. I told myself when I went through this, I remember I sat down that evening when I was looking at my bank balance. It was almost close to zero. I told myself, I want to get to a stage in my life where I don't even look at the price of the menu, and everybody who's with me, my family, my loved ones, my mum, I said to myself, I want to be able to treat them to whatever it is on that menu. Because when we were growing up, we didn't have that luxury. And I said, that's when I know I've made it. And I'm at this stage today where, I'm taking my family, over to Tokyo. We've done it last year. Like, I'm at the stage where we got that freedom. And that's what it's all about. Get to a place where you can afford all of this. And that's what makes it worthwhile. And you can actually spend it with the people who's going to be around with you for a long, long time as well. Now, number 4 is replica brands. This is a bit of an interesting story. When I was in my early 20s, I was involved with working for a luxury brand called Louis Vuitton, Hermes, as well as it was a luxury agency that would assign me to different brands. I was a student at the time, and so I would work part-time hours on weekends. But as you can imagine, when you're hanging around with these people who are buying these watches for $30,000 plus, $40,000 plus, when you hang around with these people who are the customers of the store, where you're just seeing them just spending 5K, 10K, 100K on a handbag, it almost becomes the norm, and you just want to fit in with the Joneses. At the time, my personal development was not great. I was seeking validation from the outer world instead of giving myself enough self-love in the internal world to feel good enough. And so I began to associate my self-worth with these brands. And so what I began to do was I began to, try to think, how can I afford a Rolex? I couldn't afford it. It's like here in England, it was £5,000 at the time, which is $6,000 plus. So I told myself, maybe I just got to research online. I came across these replicas that were really, really close to the real thing. don't ever make that mistake. It feels absolutely terrible. It's almost like I was wearing this Rolex watch, because I was attaching my self-worth as well. It's almost like whenever I was around with somebody who knew Rolexes, I would try to cover my wrist. Whenever I was around with somebody, general public, I'll walk around like I'm the freaking boss, but in reality, I was broke. So I was walking around on the planet just trying to impress people I don't even know or I didn't even like, and getting into debt or almost into debt, trying to impress them. It just did not make sense logically, but again, when the emotion is high, intelligence is low. Nowadays, yes, I can afford the Rolexes, Audemars Piguet, all of these watches, but it's because I choose to wear these because I like them. It's a very different energy when you actually want to wear it because you like the watch versus you're validating to everybody this is, who you are or whatever. That's a mindset you got to work on, because if you need brands to make you feel like you're good enough, work on your personal development. That's my advice to you. And another advice in regards to wearing watches or buying luxury brands, if you cannot afford at least 20, do not buy one. Let me say that again. If you can't afford at least 20, don't buy one, because you're going to go broke buying brands. Today, I walk into retail stores, luxury retail stores, and I can choose to pick out the things I want. That's where you want to get to, not when you're just checking the bank balance like, oh, I can just about afford it. That is a broke mindset, because you want to invest all of the other money into the things that's going to grow in value. And the last thing you want is to be spending all of the money you don't have to impress others, like I mentioned. So get to a point where you can afford real brands, because trust me, when you wear a replica, no matter how much you convince yourself, deep inside you're trying to impress others. Deep inside that is fake. And other people, they don't really care, to be honest. That's what I discovered. They don't really care. When I finally got to, buy my own Rolex watch, it felt absolutely amazing, because you feel that sentimental value because you've earned it. This is a milestone for you. Because when I was 17, I remember seeing my manager with a Rolex, and I was just like, oh my God, I want to get to a point one day where I can happily afford that without questioning my bank balance. It feels absolutely incredible. Work towards that. Okay, number 5. This is controversial. This is not really to do with money, but this is the core of my message. If you know my past, I used to hang around with these people. And this is why my wealth, my success, was reflecting exactly who I was hanging around with. So what I'm talking about is average friends. This is my worst purchase. Yes, I might have not paid for anything, but here's the reality check. It's not about, for example, getting to that point where you're like trying to save onto every single penny. That's a broke mindset, right? The difference between the rich is rich people use money to get back time. Poor people, they use time to try to earn money. I've hung around with more rich people, financially successful people than you probably can count. We're talking billionaires and millionaires of this country, or I should say of the world. What they all got in common is, firstly, they don't hang around with average people. Why? Because wasted time is worse than wasted money. And when I was in my early 20s, I was still in the process of, just really embracing this personal development world. I was only dabbling, just watching YouTube videos. I didn't commit to mastery. Mastery is when things change. You do not change your life from just watching videos every now and then. You got to go all in. Go, for example, attend the course or find out exactly how the psychology works. That's what I began to do. I began to put the money back into myself. As Warren Buffett says, best investment you can ever make is investing in yourself, because that's something the government can't tax, and you got that skill for the rest of your freaking life. So when I was hanging around with these average people, they were not costing me money, but they was costing me time as well as my beliefs at the time. And some of these people, by the way, even in university, when I was starting a new chapter in my life, still was putting down my dreams. And they, for example, encouraged me to do some of the things that was very average in regards to behavior. But I didn't question it. And I'm not going to be a victim out of this. I did choose to act like that because I was hanging around with them. If I was to relive that, I'd ensure the moment I touched down in London, because as you know from my story, or as you may not know, I moved away from my hometown where I grew up when I was hanging around with very negative people. If I could relive that on the first year of university when I was in London, I would have chosen to hang around with more empowering people and would have done whatever it takes, because it wasn't until about final year until I really went all in, obsessed, finding all these online communities, going to all these offline meetup events, and begin to expand my network until where I am today. where I've got network to literally people all across the globe, one of the biggest leaders in the whole industry. And trust me, this took a lot of my legwork to make it happen, but I would have done this much, much sooner in my journey. So these are the 5 worst purchases I made in my early 20s. Insider, if you would like to know the 5 best purchases I've made in my early 20s, be sure to let me know in the comments box below. Like this video if you like this video, and be sure to also share this video with somebody who's young, who got to hear this message, and that way they're not going to waste their money, nor are they going to waste their most important commodity, which is time that you never get back. And that is it from me, Insider. And as you know, I'm doing a $30,000 giveaway to celebrate our 3rd year anniversary. And on top of that, I'm doing these daily uploads because at the end of it, we're going to be giving out these prizes, and it could be to you. So if you've not yet submitted your entry, be sure to do so by following the link above, or go directly to the link here, and you can submit an entry for free, and you have a chance to win gifts and prizes worth upwards of $30,000. And whenever you check out our daily videos, you also get a daily entry, meaning the more entries, the more points you have, the more likely that you will win. Thank you so much, Insider, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. As always, follow your heart and take action, and go live the life you're truly born to live. I'll see you on the next video soon. Take care.